Scions of the Southland. We are in April. We are deep into baseball season, deep into softball season, and deep into still a lot of coaches changing hands here at Georgia Tech. We're going to dive into the new women's basketball head coach. Baseball having a crazy historic sweep out in Stanford. Look ahead into their schedule with clean old-fashioned hate on the line. Some college basketball transfers, softball, tennis, and Hiroshi Tai is playing at the Masters. He had his press conference this afternoon out in Augusta. But we'll start with baseball, who is now up to 18th in the country per D1, 26-6, 11-4 in the ACC, good enough for second place in the conference. Clemson is at the top, but they have a series in hand, so we'll see how that plays out down the line. They swept the trees. They swept that Cardinal tree out there in Stanford, and it wasn't close, like really at all. Outside of the 8-6 win on Friday, 10-3 win on Saturday, 18-2 win on Sunday with multiple grand slams. This is a week where we scored, what was it, like 56 runs over the 4-game stretch between the Mercer game and the 3 games out in California. That seems good. That seems good.
It was a lot. It was definitely a lot of runs. The the series in general, I would say, had some good vibes to it. I was nervous at the start. I think we can skip right past Mercer, but 8-6 win at Stanford to open the series on Friday. That was kind of a nail biter.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of traffic on the base paths is how I would describe it, and kind of one of I guess the points that we honed in on last week was maybe some pitching choices, if you will. But Georgia Tech did wind up, of course, Tate McKee to start, but bringing in Mason Patel for 4 1/3 to shut things down. He gave up 1 earned run, 1 total runs, 1 walk, five strikeouts, and 5 hits. So some base runners scattered around in there, but 70 pitches, pitched half the game. I think that had me, at least initially, feeling a little bit nervous. I don't know. Stanford, I don't know. The score is deceiving. I would have liked to finish just a little bit more of hearing about so D1 baseball, very effusive, particularly Mike Rooney on their weekend reaction podcast. But everyone's buying Georgia Tech, and like it was great. Sunday was incredible. You
Yeah.
love to
Yeah.
beat the brakes off of a team and get a sweep and all that good stuff. That's what goes from being a team that makes the tournament to being a team that hosts in the tournament, right?
Right. Right.
So you want to see that, but I don't know. It was within a couple of runs late on Saturday and a 2-run game on Friday. So I would not say that Stanford is just completely maybe they're washed kind of thing. No, that team is
No.
too talented to be
Yeah.
that bad. Georgia Tech just played that well on the road and took care of business. Really, really took care of business.
Actually, I'll let you go before I have my Mason Patel thought.
So I have two thoughts here. Number one, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I was very surprised at how Stanford's pitching staff sort of melted down in this series. It was very uncharacteristic for a squad that has, and I finally looked this up, that went to the College World Series in 2022, and has typically puts together very competitive college baseball seasons, right? They went back to back College World Series in 21 22. They took a massive step back in 2020, but that's COVID adjusted season. But even the 2 years before that, you're talking NCAA regional and NCAA super regional. So this is a very good baseball team. Traditionally,
Right.
I don't know, Jack, if you have their ACC record on hand, and preferably their ACC record before going into this series. But I wonder if that adjustment and some of the travel that they've had to do has had a big effect on their ability to compete at the same level that they were in the Pac-12. I mean, the Pac-12 isn't like a bad baseball conference, like not like
No,
a
that's
notoriously
yeah.
bad baseball conference, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Past.
that's point number one,
Good.
I guess. Point number two is that speaking about Stanford again, Georgia Tech baseball's Instagram account put this stat out, and this is the historic part you were mentioning earlier. Quote, this weekend, the Yellow Jackets became the first team east of the Rocky Mountains to ever sweep a series of at least 3 games at Stanford Stanford has been playing baseball since 1892, end quote. Look, like Stanford's rate of playing teams east of the Rockies, especially under the previous configuration of the Pac-12, is probably fairly low. So like
Right.
take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. That being said, though, again, this is a program that like minted NCAA regionals, College World Series appearances, and all of that. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for most of the last. When does Mark Marquez's tenure start? 1977. Like for the last 50 years, they've minted appearances at the highest level. It's it, it's not something that I want to like completely shake a stick at, even with the caveats. Like this is
Right.
a really, really good performance against a traditional power program.
Yep. Yep. Stanford's 5-10 in the conference, but they've lost their last what six? They've lost. Well, they were 5-7 going into the weekend, so they 8, 9, 10. So they were being hovering in the 500 realm. They're 17-12 in the season, but they're in the realm. They're one game behind Cal, and then just ahead of Pitt and Miami. So yeah, it's not looking great for them in that regard. Otherwise, our rankings, it's looking very good. Perfect Game has us 15th. The Coaches Poll has us 18th. Baseball America has its 20th. Massey has us at 8. Oh my goodness. Our own custom, absolutely correct rankings have us at 18. And then we're number 10 in RPI. So, I mean, across the
And
board, we have reached the okay. Everyone agrees that this is a extremely good team, and there's not any qualifier set. They're just good.
I want to say, I noticed a really strange edge case with our data, USI. So I kind of filter out some data a little bit weirdly, but Georgia Tech has the strange coincidence or strange occurrence of not having any quad two games right now. Um, in my rankings, I don't give credit for a null ranking, a 0 out of 0, if you will, because I find that overweights for low major and mid major. So if Tech were to have one game counting in the standings, well, provided that's a win, or say even if they were 1-3, or sorry, 1-2 in a 3 game set against a quad two team, that would bring them up certainly back into hosting territory in the USI. Just a weird quirk of it not being the end of the year yet, and something that we kind of can manually see at the end of the year. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a good argument for reconsidering how we do that. Usually it's a very low major not having quad one or quad two games in there. But yeah, so the quality of competition Georgia Tech has played, I think upshot there is quite good on the top end. And I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's only going to get tougher in the next couple of weeks here. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm feeling good even with my numbers, which are usually not on the low end of things for Georgia Tech, being like I said on the low end of things for Georgia Tech. So go
Yeah.
figure.
They've won a mercy rule game in every ACC series so far. Pitt, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Stanford. We've had 18-2
Whew.
7 inning run wins against both Clemson and Stanford, which is just nuts. So,
Yeah,
by Mason Patel point as you're against on that Friday game, we've seen this same recipe now 2 weekends in a row with Mason of pitching a lot of innings against what should be a good team late in the game and generally holding them to a manageable number of runs. And the fact he's done that twice, like in back-to-back weekends now, is very promising to me. Which I mean, he's already been touted as the best reliever in college baseball at this point by other media, so it's not surprising in that regard. But at the same time,
yeah,
like we have a Friday recipe to win, and it is throwing McKee as long as possible, and then throwing Patel as long as possible. And if they're allowing, I mean, if you're allowing only 6 runs over that stretch, that's more than those two combined usually do, but it's enough that our bats should be able to maintain it. Should be able to win with that number too.
One
yeah.
thing, just to double down on that Mason Patel. I mean, I guess the McKee Patel combination in those sequences. Um, I think a couple weeks ago we pulled up the Fangraphs profiles for both McKee and Patel and sort of walked through how lucky they were getting, if they were getting lucky. I think McKee specifically has now come back down to earth right around where his FIP was. He's sitting at a 3.66 ERA with a 3.00 FIP. So that luck earlier in the season has evened out, but like even still, ERA somewhere in the threes is far better
So
than
much better.
where Georgia
So
Tech
much better.
starters have typically sat, right?
Yeah.
With Patel, his FIP is still around 3.2, or it's actually 3.15, but his ERA is still 1.4. So he's still getting a little lucky, but at the same time, like these are really quality performances. Obviously, like we've been talking about, he's getting those batters on their third plate appearance or their third at bat
Hmm.
typically, and that helps break up that continuity. But like at this point, you're talking about 38 innings for Patel and 39 innings for McKee. These guys are who they are, right? And
Yeah.
this is who they're going to be for the rest of the season. And they're shoving, like not to go all Georgia boy and Georgia baseball boy, but like they're shoving, dude. They're
Yeah.
shoving.
Yeah, Patel, he's still, as he has this whole time, has the top ERA of anyone in P4. The guy that's number one is a guy named Jack Oman at Yale, who has pitched the same number of innings and about the same number of innings and three less appearances. Has one earned run total. His ERA is 0.23 compared to Patel's 1.42. But then even then, like the rest of the leaderboard is most of it's not all tournament teams, so it's working out quite well in that regard. So, batting average wise, we're number two in the country, 342 behind Central Connecticut State. So it's things are
Another
working.
log
Things
to
are working.
another log to throw on the fire here. Tech is 8 in D1 baseball's DSR ranking as well. Uh, Athens is at 6. The highest ACC team is Clemson at 4. So you're talking about a very, very, very nationally competitive team, um, based on predictive metrics as well.
Yep. We have since Danny Hall announced that he was going to step down at the end of the year. We've played 7 games. We've outscored our opponents 85-31 in those games, and those have all been against good teams for the most part, except for the Mercer game. So, but whatever this is, it's working. It'd be cool if they just kept on going. That'd be cool. I saw Ben King use the hashtag Omaha, Road to Omaha, instead of seems that works. It works for me. This week, big time stuff. Tuesday is going to be one of the best games of the year. Hopefully, Tech plays number 9 Auburn at home. This is the 248th meeting between the two schools in baseball. Second most common opponent in program history. I'm guessing Jake Georgia's the number 1, or is it Clemson?
I assume number one has to be Georgia. I honestly didn't even check because I assumed it was that with Clemson, who they're tied with for
I
number
figured.
two.
I figured. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
And then the Cal Bears come to town this weekend. I will also just note the game after that, which we'll record in between here and then. But the next Tuesday after that is the Truist Park game against the Bulldogs. So get your tickets. We do not need that stadium to be any more red and black than it will probably be anyways. So, uh, and it's probably a cheaper way to get to Truist Park than most anyways. So it'll be a fun night.
I think it was like $19, $20, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, awesome.
I'll see y'all there. How's that?
That works. That works. On to softball. They had a similarly. Oh man, we went 8-0 between baseball and softball this weekend. How about that? Softball beat Georgia Southern only 1-0, but then had a sweep of the Syracuse Orange 11-5, 4-3, and 3-0. So outscoring them 18-8 throughout the 3 games. So that's very good as well. That series got shrunk into 2 days because we had the incoming inclement weather on Sunday. Syracuse is not amazing at this sport, so it was not surprising that we got the sweep. Jake, I'll leave it to you just to kind of put this in context of where we are now.
Yeah, I would say that Syracuse is not super great, but I kind of had the same. This is going to sound a little weird. I had the same reaction walking away from this series as I did the Clemson series in baseball. And you might go, Jake, Clemson's leading the ACC in baseball, and Syracuse is trailing the ACC in softball. How do you mean? And I think double headers just get more weird than they get credit for. I think
Hmm.
an example of this, you saw Texas A&M, a struggling team, and this is baseball again, a struggling team go into Tennessee and win twice in 2 days because the weather was also up in Tennessee. I think you just get some strange occurrences happening with 2 games getting pushed together.
Yep.
Like I said, Syracuse is not not particularly good. They're 3-12 in the ACC, pretty similar to a Pitt or a Boston College, or dare I say, no offense, Louisville.
Fair,
Longtime
fair.
listeners know. But yeah, I just think it's strange, and this might sound weird coming from me, a guy who really does not let up in terms of letting people off the hook for performances, but I don't know. It just seems like they took care of business in the first game. You kind of had a fine win in the second game, the doubleheader, and then Saturday, I don't know. They just didn't have it. They had 6 hits. They couldn't scratch a run across, and that's kind of that.
Yep.
So
Yep. It happens. Uh, so I know last time we talked about where this team is tournament wise. They were about middle of the pack for the at large bids. This doesn't move that needle, of course, because you win the games and you're fine.
yeah.
But did the fact we played Syracuse move us down at all when it comes to how RPI and the rest of those metrics pan out?
In terms of the USI specifically, and my rating that I would say I know pretty much inside and out, we actually went up just
Oh,
because
great.
a 3-1 week will treat you pretty well. I think that's kind of consistent with you know obviously you'd love to win every game, but winning every week is kind of, especially against these kinds of teams, like I don't know, it just feels so it feels silly to say, you got to win 4-0. It's baseball, it's softball. These weird games
Yeah.
happen where you drop one. But right now Georgia Tech in RPI is actually ranked 31st, so a little bit rosier than I have them. I have them right at
Okay.
33, very similar to the North Carolina team that we're about to visit. So keep an eye on that one. But Georgia Tech's really benefited from, yeah, they're not perfect in the tough sledding that they've seen so far. I'll flag that they did lose 2 to Stanford, they did lose 2 to Cal, lost a game at Mississippi State, lost one to Oklahoma State. But those are all quad one wins, and they have four wins in that bunch already between Auburn, Oklahoma State, Stanford, and Cal. It's really quad two where it gets a little dicey. Kentucky, Coastal, and North Texas are all in that bucket, but I mean Tech's taking enough care of business. In quad three and quad four games that really they've stacked a lot of wins to this
Hmm.
point, and they've
Yep.
got a lot of quality wins. I would love to get 1 out of 3 from Florida State, 1 out of 3 from Clemson type of situation coming up, and then hey, if you can beat UGA in there too or something like that, maybe
Be good.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe 3 out of 7 or 2 out of 7, I think would make me feel pretty similar about them. I don't even have them on the bubble right now, Jack. I have Tech safe in if the season ended today. So
Right. I mean, River, they did beat Oklahoma State. Like they
yeah.
did the
Mhm.
stuff they needed to do. So
Yeah, I would think that North Carolina is a pretty good team, but I don't know if they're necessarily um, I don't know if they're necessarily as tested as us. So that's kind of where I'll draw that line. Obviously, Duke quite good, but they got swept. Similar record against Syracuse. They lost a series to Clemson, swept Pitt. I mean, they're kind of penciling out pretty similar to us, but other than that, like they didn't take care of business against Auburn. That's probably the next best team or the only
yeah.
main solid non-con team that they've got. So,
Standings wise, we're sixth in the conference. North Carolina's a game
mhm.
behind us, so winning this 2 out of 3 goes a long way in securing just a higher that not top slot, but top half part of the ACC before we do play Florida State and Clemson. Uh, we don't have a home game for 2 weeks because we go to Jacksonville State, then the UNC series at UNC, then we have no midweeks before going to Tallahassee, and then our
Yeah.
next home game is clean old fashioned 8 on April 22nd. So it's going to be there's a lot of Eddie. Yeah, I think 2 out of 3 at North Carolina, 1 out of 3 at Florida State would be the baseline. Like, okay, that holds. I think that would just hold true to just what this team's shown us this year too, is getting that done. Because the pitching's been right where we need it to be. We haven't blown teams out necessarily all the time. Uh, in terms of just mercy rule to mercy rule to mercy rule. So we're playing full games, but the pitching staff's handling it all the same.
And I think I think that's where the results variance comes in a little bit, right? They're not slamming any doors, and if you're keeping in close games like that, you are going to play a 1-0 game against Georgia Southern. You are going to
Yeah.
play a 3-0 game against Syracuse, but they're punching up against some of these better teams, Oklahoma State, Auburn, that kind of thing. I mean, like I said, if they could take advantage on the slate they have left, we have. I mean, it'd be tough, but we're not ruling out being a really high 2 seed type of territory. Somebody that you really don't want to get
Yep.
assigned to your regional, and that's the high end, right? The
Yeah,
low
that's great.
end is missing the tournament altogether. But I think the SOS is high enough that they're just keep taking care of business. I'm not putting any carts before any
Yeah.
horses. So
I'll be happy as long as they're not yet another Tech team that gets slotted in the worst part of the NCAA tournament bracket in the very top left corner. I just don't want that. I've watched that story play out too many times in the last 3 years across the sports. So notably the women's
yeah.
sports in particular. So okay, I think we hit that all.
Wait, did you
Yes,
just
go.
say notably the women's sports? I just want to derail this just for a sec because
Well,
baseball got sent to
I'm thinking
Vandy
of
and Tennessee in back-to-back years, and
okay,
that
that
was
did
pretty
happen.
brutal.
I'm
So
thinking of
sorry.
volleyball getting in that same exact number 17
Yep.
team slot
Yep.
multiple. Yeah. So anyways, all right.
No, yeah.
I think we're there with that. Let's hear from section 103.
Yeah, as always, this podcast is brought to you by section103.com. I know we've talked about the Legends of March, and you should still check them out. It is post March Madness, or by the time this goes live, probably post March Madness. But Section 103, you can still get your legends from back in the glory days of Georgia Tech hoops. Georgia Tech is very lucky to have Section 103. They've got Georgia Tech gold on all sorts of things and a ton of selections of hats of note. Baseball, softball related stuff. You can get that in the jackets. It's not really script, but it's kind of like swooshy looking. I don't know. We're doing this on the fly. But if you do order this week, shipping will resume on the 11th. So keep an eye out for that. As always, free shipping on orders over $80. And remember to use code FTRS for 10% off. Tell them we sent you. Gents, back to you.
3 of the 4 head coaching vacancy, what could have been head coaching vacancies, are now filled. As last week, me and Kurt Hoyt talked about Nell Fortner retiring from coaching in college basketball and what this next week would look like potentially, how we're going to find a coach, which we're like, hey, all the coaches are in Tampa because the coaches convention is happening during the Final Four. And guess what happened? We found a coach. We got one. They're here today. It is Karen Blair. She was the associate head coach at Maryland for the last 5 seasons after it was the coach there for the last 7 seasons in total. Karen is the 7th full-time women's basketball head coach in team history. In general, this feels like a very good hire. Very established pedigree coming from a team that was very, very good better than Tech for one, which helped for me. That's a good sign. But in general, we got someone who was ready to make this kind of leap and who had proven themselves and had recruited well in the past, and it was like, all right, come do it here, and they're doing it.
Well, and she flagged that she was doing NIL and like recruitment management type stuff for Maryland in her opening presser. Hot off of listening to that before we logged in here. And I encourage all of you to go listen to it. It was very, very good to hear what Coach has to say there. I mean, obviously, going to have glowing comments and quotes in
Right.
in
It's a
uh
press conference.
in
Yeah.
in media and things like that. Jay Bat's going to say glowing things, but they moved fast on this. That leads me to
They
believe
did.
that they got somebody that was high on their list, or at least somebody who was available and high on their list.
Yeah.
But yeah, saying the right stuff about recruiting the roster, education. This is there's a lot to like here, right? Somebody
Yeah.
with a lot of experience as a player and a coach, doing a lot of modern, important things as a coach, and somebody who I think importantly spoke glowingly about Nell Fortner and the program that she is coming to lead. I think
Yeah.
that Georgia Tech, kind of prides itself on being a good place of growth for humans for humans
Mhm.
in general, right? And
Yes, literally. Yes.
obviously you're going to say the right stuff in a presser, but between kind of the stuff she was, and we can get into this in a sec, stuff she was talking about on play style, stuff she was talking about on roster management, and the pedigree of coming from Maryland, a place that has been extremely, extremely successful in her time
Hmm.
there. I don't know. Maybe you kind of had maybe they'll hire a up and coming mid major head coach, but associate head coach at a big program that's been managing the NIL and recruiting space and succeeding at the Power Four level.
That's the recipe you'd want.
Who are we to judge, right?
Right,
Like
exactly.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. Akshay, what do you got?
I've heard pretty good things. I think I'm interested in some of the mechanics here as well, just because it was so soon between when Nell Fortner announced her retirement and when this deal gets done. Obviously, like you guys talked about, the coaching convention runs alongside the national championship and the Final Four in Tampa usually. So, or in the same city as the Final Four, excuse me. So that like greases a lot of wheels, so to speak. But it makes me think, and you said this earlier too. It's like, it makes me really think that they got someone that was near the top of the short list.
Yeah.
And I think the pedigree, especially the recent pedigree here is good, right? I was reading Charles Odom's at the AP. He covers Atlanta sports and including the women's basketball programs, the college programs. And he mentions Maryland won at least one game in 5 of 6 NCAA tournament appearances in the last 7 years. The Terps advanced to the Sweet 16 in 21, 22, and 25 and earned a spot in the Elite 8 in 2023, end quote. So like a recent success of that program is pretty well documented. I think the thing that gives me a little bit of pause is when you talk about working with recruiting. I think now things are a little different. It's not so dependent. The logo on the chest plays a role, and it still plays a key role, but it also, it's not wholly dependent when you're able to do some of these NIL deals with local companies. I'm a little interested to see what kind of Jake is staring at me very intently in his camera as I say this, so I wonder if I've said something wrong. But I'm interested to see what kind of differences there are in terms of managing that, and especially I think Jack, we saw before we started recording that she is the Coach Blair is the only one listed on the coaching staff page.
Yeah,
currently.
I don't
So
know what
it's
else
going to
you'd
be
expect though. Like
that's the thing. Yeah,
not
true.
to jump right in. Like she's gonna
right.
bring her own staff board. Like I don't know. It's not like we expected, coaching staffs in football to maintain all this continuity. And
no.
arguably other sports having some of that continuity is weird in that. But when Pastner was out, that was a pretty clean house post men's basketball. And actually, if you haven't listened to the presser, I would encourage you to do it. Obviously, very manicured quotes and things like that, but I don't think you can ding her on roster and NIL and recruitment management and recruiting to a logo when it clearly seems like that's been a big part of her role at Maryland. I'm
Oh
I'm
no.
eager to have somebody who's in tune with it seeming a pretty modern aspect of the game. So
I'm not necessarily doubting the skill here. I just am very sensitive to the number 2 recruiter in the nation sort of tag. If you remember the old football regime and how that went occasionally. So
I think you're
We're verging on
clutching at
heresy
straws
point.
here.
This is rough.
heresy. Listen to her dang press conference. They're not
This
like
is rough.
they're not like 404ing the culture of this situation, man.
no, I'm
I
not.
don't know.
This is already better.
We can cut all of this. This is what you get on a long Monday. But I'm always just very, especially in a situation where you now have to go and recruit your roster back, like almost the entirety of your roster back, right? There are 4 players left on the roster, basically, I think was the last count we got. And you have to go get, not only do you have to get the rest of the roster, you have to get your best player and Danny Carnegie back out of the portal too. How do you convince her of, okay, like this is our mission, this is our fit? It's more like, it's not really like a concern thing, or it's not really like I am worried about this, or I'm worried about this coach's ability to do this. I think I see it more as what do their first 100 days look like? And these are the issues that they need to solve, right? That's the way that I would position it. Like, what are the infrastructural challenges that they face, that Coach Blair faces, especially heading into a situation where these players really appreciated what Nell Fortner was able to do for them, and now you're dealing with a depleted roster, right? I think that's the angle that that I'm taking here.
And for one, it's normal now when coaches change in college basketball to have your roster basically almost wholly turnover. Like this is not they as much as this is still startling for all of us that have been watching basketball for a number of years to be like, wait a second, you're gonna have 8 new players in the season? Like what the heck? And they're not just
Yeah,
all
I mean, it's
freshmen.
just the
Like
number. It's just the
that's still
number is so
yeah,
low.
right. It still hits us that hard. I'll note right now as we're recording, there are still 10 players listed on the team website. We know Rosna Gostanaite has committed to Clemson. We know Gabby Grooms has committed to Georgia State. From what we have what's come out online, Kara Dunn's in the transfer portal. Tiani Carnegie, of course, is very much in the transfer portal. Tiana Thompson is in the transfer portal. See where they all go. We have not seen any. Ari Termes is in the portal. I think a number of them have the do not contact label on their portal as well, which is pretty normal as well. So we'll see. As of now, though, that does mean that I assume because they have not committed to anywhere, that means they've been able to have an opportunity to talk with Karen Blair about, hey, maybe you do come back, maybe you do stay. And we saw with Malik Rutherford and other with the football team. He's like, all right, I'll come back after hitting the portal himself. So it's not impossible for a number of these players to come back, if not all of them. Hopefully, I mean, I would hope they all do because this was a very good core. I mean, Kara Dunn. I mean, I'm gonna re-edit your words here actually just a little bit. Kara Dunn was objectively our best player this year, being first team All ACC. Danny, player of the future though for this team, I think, and that's like that she is the person.
Yeah, it's a potential adjustment, right?
Yeah, she's the man. Yeah, she carries the torch from the Morgan Noero Dunn team to her team, which in theory would be her and Chit Chat Wright and Tiana Thompson. So we'll see on that. I'm playstyle she did mention she wants to do pace and space, which is not an abnormal thing for basketball right now, where you shoot a lot of threes and get open and cut to the hoop if you have space. That we were kind of doing that. Our team was kind of doing that this year. We had the 3-point range this year that Tech women's basketball teams generally haven't had in the past, so it won't. In theory, I think that what looks like the purest version of Blair basketball will not look too dissimilar to what we were trying to do this year with the very high tempo offense that Blanche Alverson was trying to run, which is good news for trying to maybe retain these players that are in the portal of ours right now as well. Be like, okay, what we're going to be trying to do isn't a far cry from what Fortner ball and Alverson ball looked like, and so you want to keep doing this and see who can she maybe pull in the portal that be willing to play for her. We'll see. I'd be surprised if we get players from Maryland showing up here, just because that's not I just don't know how that's going to happen or what is there with that. But nonetheless, much higher 35,000-foot view. I do like how we went from having one of the all-time like coaching greats of the sport. Like, I mean, Fortner has a gold medal. She was coach of the year in 3 different conferences. In the one season she was in Big Ten at Purdue, she got Big Ten coach of the year. Got it in the SEC when she was with Auburn. Got it at Tech while she was here in the ACC, and brought this team to a much more consistently good spot. Got 20+ wins 3 times. And now that got us to a point where we weren't necessarily having to reset in terms of how good of a coach can we get past her after that time is left. Like, we're not that reset. We didn't really hit it. It's more of a reload button. It feels like more than a reset button for this program, which feels like progress when it's all said and done. So hopefully we're still relevant in 25, 26. So, but we'll see.
I think it's interesting to compare this moment for this program compared to where they were when Fortner was hired. Right. I think you've put it really well that it's a reload. Like, the floor is a lot higher from a program infrastructure, program relevance, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like one of those CFP 25
prestige.
Kind of, program prestige. Yes, thank you. It's like that. Like, from a program prestige perspective, it's a lot higher, and also there's just not the specter of, I don't know, like malaise to an extent. Like,
right, it's not, well, the brand's
was around
good.
The program before.
The brand's good. Well, hopefully there will be some good news soon. We'll see how this coaching staff develops. I mean, as of now, Coach Blair is the only one listed on the staff paid part of the roster. So we'll see if any of that existing staff decides to come back. At worst, they all proved everyone that was below 4 proved their value. So I have no doubt that they'll be very productive and good parts of coaching staffs around the country if they so decide to leave. And then we'll see where these players land. I mean, mission number 1 right now is get Kara Dunn back. That from everything, unless we got someone better somehow that's willing to show up here, it's get Kara. That's I think what needs to happen here. So, okay, On to men's basketball, they had similarly had some transfer portal stuff go down. Ibrahim Souare and Nate George both transferred to Syracuse this week, and then Duncan Powell transferred to Georgetown. We did not have any incomings announced. Souare and George, they're pretty they're friendly dudes, they're buds, so it makes sense that they would go out togetger.
The dream of the Big East is back, Jack. Unfortunately for us, but Syracuse and Georgetown being active in the transfer market here. Someone that remembers Big East basketball is just sobbing at this beauty.
Something like that. So, yeah, all that's left there is we'll see how the portal keeps playing out there. Otherwise, no major news there. I mean, losing George sucks. I mean, we knew he hit the portal. We talked about last week just how it sucks to lose him and just what he brought to this team. But the recruiting class is good coming up behind them. So that's the hope is that I think this is where the main judgment, so to say, of Damon's tenure here is going to come into focus. Like, okay, is these guys that you worked for 2 years to come get, are they going to do the job this year? Are they going to raise the floor of Tech with a young team this year compared, and then will they set us up for future success? So see how that goes. On to golf. This is a big golf week. Tech doesn't play, except Hiroshi Tai, their most recent NCAA individual national champion, does play. He is at Augusta National with an invite to play the Masters. He's the fourth active Jacket to play the tournament since 2020. Tower Strafacki, Andy Ogletree, Christo Lamprecht, and himself, Hiroshi Tai, comprising that list. We have Ogletree is there this weekend, too, because he is going to caddy for Hiroshi Tai, which is super, super cool. Hiroshi will become the first Singaporean to play the Masters, and he's the only Jacket that's going to be playing this year. Kuchar did not get an invite. Stuart Sink did not get an invite, and then Lamprecht is out on a different tour, so he wasn't going to get invited to the PGA Tour. So, I mean, for me, this just gives me another guy to watch in the Masters. I'm going to watch them all anyways, but I think just in general, like this, Hiroshi gets to be another very great member of the very long-standing Georgia Tech Augusta National legacy that keeps going. So I think, if anything, that's the thing I'm most proud about, even before Hiroshi's hitting any balls over there at Augusta. No one watches golf here? Is this just me? Am I the golf nerd here? That no one watches? No? Okay. All right.
I watch Georgia Tech golf, and Akshay watches not Georgia Tech golf. He watches people hit into a screen. So you know.
Akshay watches TGL.
Atlanta Drive Golf Club, inaugural TGL champions. I don't want to hear it. Okay.
I think that TGL, and I've thought on this, and this is about all the golf I've watched all year because, like I said, I only really watch Georgia Tech golf or play it myself.
I can't believe
I think TGL
is no segment.
I think that TGL is the dumbest sport on television right now.
It is.
I cannot stand to watch that,
Dude,
and I will not watch it.
There's pickleball on television.
Okay, this is
there
true.
is pickleball on television.
I don't know. Jack, I wish I could have the time to watch more sports than I do, but I don't. So I got to prioritize. How's that for?
That works. That works. I know I'm a golf addict, so that I'll take my whatever's there. Anyways, watch Hiroshi Tai at the Masters. It's gonna be great. On to tennis. I know y'all can talk about tennis. Just someone started talking about the men's tennis team. What happened this weekend?
Yeah, so it was tough. I don't want to say you expect losses anywhere, but UVA is good.
Gotcha.
0-4 loss there. Can't really do much about that. That said, a loss to Virginia Tech, that's a team you need to beat. Quite frankly, it is one that is not currently in the rankings, if you will. It's tough because Georgia Tech men's tennis is right at about 40 in the Massey. This is maybe us leaning on Massey just a little bit, but it's kind of one that they needed, if that makes sense. Virginia Tech's outside the top 75, and Georgia Tech had I think 95% chance pregame to win that. So really not something that you want to see when you're sitting at 11-9 and you kind of need some differentiation to get over a hump or in a tournament picture. So,
yep,
a little
Makes
tough.
sense. Makes sense. They go to Clemson on this Friday. They will go to Clemson. I believe that was the finished end of the home slate for the guys this past weekend. The women were
Mhm.
out at Louisville and Notre Dame for the east part of the Midwest, if not Midwest, the Western ACC. That oh shit, that's not the Western ACC. There's a whole West Coast of the. Yeah, this freaking conference just destroys my brain.
I
Anyways,
love how you started this sentence with the eastern part of the Midwest of the ACC, which is like three different
it's really
positional
bad geography. It's
identifiers.
really bad geography. It does not make sense. Anyways, we beat Louisville 4-3, lost to Notre Dame 4-2. Jake, you have here. It would have been nice to get the Notre Dame match. I agree. Why did we not get the Notre Dame match?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it didn't break Tech's way. I know that's kind of reductive, but Notre Dame better than maybe past Notre Dame teams would be. They're probably 35 to 25 type of talent, if you will. So
Hmm.
honestly, pretty comparable to Georgia Tech. So again, not the absolute end of the world or anything like that, but it is a tough show. Tech lost doubles. All the doubles were really close. It was a 7-5, 6-4, and then Tech did win 7-6. So like I said, pretty tight there. That proved to be the difference. Scarlett Nicholson won on one. Kyla Bilchev won on six there as well. And then there was I believe one of the matches was unfinished. Alejandro Cruz was yeah. Alejandro was
Got
Cruz.
it. Got it.
Alejandro was Cruz. Alejandro Cruz was tied after going 6-2, 2-6, and it was 6-6 in the third. There was a couple really tough tie breaks. Given Roach lost 7-6, 8-6 in that third set on court four. So one of those ones where maybe a point or two swings the match. Really really narrow loss there, and then. That they got the win at Louisville, and that's the one that they really, really needed to get.
Yep.
Definitely a team that you need to beat is Louisville. So
Just look at the schedule. They got one match left before the ACC championships. But in general, when they've been playing ranked teams, they've at least been getting matches and putting themselves in contention this year. They've been ranked a couple weekends this year. They lost by one match against North Carolina State, who was number 11 on the road when they faced them. They did get swept by number 5 North Carolina. Got to 4-3 against number 10 Duke. Beat number 16 Clemson 4-2. Got two matches against number 2 Virginia. Georgia swept us. They were number 1 at the time. South Carolina we beat 4-2 when they were number 22 in the country. So they've got the firepower to put up some fight against. And we're going to play these tough ACC teams again in the ACC championships. So they're gone 2-2 in their last 4 matches, but they're not. But they're still showing they've got it in them. They face SMU to finish the season on Sunday at home. So that'll be the last tennis match of the season of any kind in ACC play on Tech's campus as a noon start. And then they will be in Cary, North Carolina for the ACC championships next week, along with the guys as well. Okay, there's a lot of miscellaneous in club sports. This is as big as this section has ever been. Survivor, I'll be quick here. Eva's still alive. Watch the show. It's fantastic. Anyways, Club Lacrosse, they did. Oh boy, this is lovely. What a lovely sight here. 23-13 win over the boys out east in Athens. That warms my heart. That warms my heart to see.
yeah, I mean it's technically an upset too. But 10 goals is a lot of goals. Maybe it's not quite an upset, and maybe it's Georgia Tech played a really tough early schedule that we kind of talked through. I think last week or the week before.
Yeah.
The
I would
pollsters
expect
don't
that.
respect them. The pollsters don't respect them.
I
That Northeastern
I
loss wasn't
think
great.
I was gonna say I think they probably took a couple more L's than one might have expected, but they're actually at 11 in what's posted to the site now on the 7th. So
Yep.
that would mean that not only did it knock UGA from a top 10, top 5 type of team down to 27, but that Georgia Tech
They
also was brought down one spot by the win,
You
which
won
is
by too
kind of
many.
funny.
We won by too many goals. It needed to be a
You
close
may,
match to prove they were both top tier teams, but you beat them so
yeah,
badly that it makes you think, wait, if they're that bad, you must also still not be. Oh my goodness. All right, Ken
yeah.
Lovich. I'm sorry if I got that completely wrong just now, but it was a funny bit. Club swimming. Oh my goodness. We got another banner to hang. 2025 national champions, Georgia Tech Swim Club. They're Jake. I know you got all this stuff here, but what is this? Their fourth, fifth? Or I say there. I feel like I should count myself in this because I've got one of these national championships. This is at least the third, if not the fourth, fifth in the last 7 years.
I think It's technically the fourth, and I know that the one that I'm asterisking was one where I was on the roster still, but 2021 was a virtual meet. That just
Ah,
feels
okay.
wrong. Like not
Yeah, I
everyone
agree.
was in the same
No, that
place, you
doesn't. Yeah, I,
know?
I, I feel okay
Yeah.
with not counting that one. That yeah, that
So yeah. So 18, 19, 21, and 25. So new banner there. First one since before the pandemic, in terms of one where, everyone's competing in the same pool and all that. It was a good showing. I know we talked about some of the preliminary results, or I guess first day results. Last week, but the men and the women finished third and second overall, respectively. And Georgia Tech actually had the high point scorer of the meet for the women. That would be Delaney Carlton. And also, this might be a familiar name. Rachel Fulton was third in terms of high point scorers. Carlton, a former, I believe, NCAA qualifier for UNC, I want to
Hmm.
say there, who's a master's in analytics student. So, good job, master's program expansion, and Georgia Tech there.
Yes,
And
yes.
then and Rachel Fulton was a Georgia Tech varsity swimmer, at least from what I could tell from checking on the roster, because I was like, both of these names seem really, really familiar. Tech set 9 team records and 7 CCS records, including the 200 medley. In a 145.83 on the women's side, a 400 free 330.87. That breaks Tech's record from 2019. And I believe by a decent chunk there. A lot of these records were by kind of a lot. That
Wow.
the women also broke the 200 free relay with a 135.35. The previous record was Michigan State's 136.52. So to see a record come down by a second and a quarter
That's a lot.
is
Jesus. That's
is kind of
crazy.
insane.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Wow.
They
Yeah.
they dropped the mixed 200 free record from 129.59 to 127.23. Uh
Yep. That
also a big drop.
that's yeah. My
A
goodness.
I will say Carlton had 3 individual records of her own. 50 fly, 24.47 brought that down by about a half second from a 24.91.
Hmm.
But I will say the previous record holder there, Lindsay Engel from 2019, she was a Stanford varsity swimmer and had gone to NCAAs and scored in the 100 and 200 fly. So
Okay.
um,
Wow.
maybe
Okay.
maybe not just a Delaney Carlton swam for varsity programs, but this is a legitimately fast time,
Yeah.
particularly for CCS, which sees a lot of retired. In various forms of fashions out of eligibility type swimmers, a lot of master's students and PhDs. Carlton also broke the 50 free and 100 free records, taking them from Alex Rieger, another retired varsity swimmer, and Juliana Prim, who swam for UNC for a bunch of years up there. So long time records falling there. And then Rachel Fulton, as noted, also got the 100 back record, and Gabrielle Freund broke Georgia Tech's Ellie Ridgway's previous record in the 100 fly. So lots and lots of
Yeah.
CCS records there, all on the women's or mixed sides there, and also 2 other previously held by Georgia Tech records, or at least one more broke. I think the 400 IM was broken by somebody from Michigan. I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants at this point, but yeah, Tech wound up kind of running away with it. 387 points combined, beating Purdue, who had 1,189, and Virginia, who had 1147. Oh, and Cal Poly, who had 1121.5. So pretty tight 2-4, but Georgia Tech definitely pulled away for that combined title there. So
Georgia Tech beat Virginia in swimming. That's the end of that sentence. Uh,
yeah, cut it
oh,
off right there.
that's it. That's it. I don't want no more elaboration. Man, Georgia Tech Masters program, the greatest transfer portal method we have to win trophies, and that is in club swimming. Who knew? Who knew? Tech is awesome in so many ways. All right, to wrap us out, we got spring football coming up. The spring game is this coming Saturday. I think I'm going to try to sit down with one of our other media members to just kind of dig into what this game is going to look like. Uh, I believe they're going to play normal gold and white. We're going to play normal football. We're not going to do that crazy hijinks that North Carolina did, where they like didn't play football last year or outright we're not outright canceling the game like other schools are, thankfully. So we'll still have the game. It is at 1 p.m. on Saturday, ESPN Plus, ACC Network Extra. If you have the streaming services, do either of you have any hopes and dreams for this game outside of no injuries, or are y'all going to go to this game? How do y'all feel about this going into it? If there are any feelings.
Still figuring out if I'm going to be there. I do not necessarily need to have hopes for the spring game. It is practice.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
we got a Haynes King. We know what Brent Key kind of offers at this point. Maybe there's a little bit of interest just from seeing the defense out there. I think that's probably a couple of our position groups that I have some questions about. But and of course Tyler Santucci's departure
Yep.
also influences that as well. But at the end of the day, it's spring. The
It is
transfer
practice.
portal is going to open again.
Right.
Like
Exactly. That's the thing.
oh
Is
well.
we've got a lot of guys that are going to want to be taken from us too, probably. So I'm always like, don't play the game. Don't let them see it. Don't let them
Not
see how much
and
better they
not
got.
and not to say that like you should choose a Georgia Tech event versus this, but like you're gonna get more meaningful sporting exposure from going to watch baseball than
Yeah,
you are from the spring game.
that's
But
fair.
I
That's
mean they'll
fair.
still outdraw baseball by like a factor of 10 because it's
It's
college
football.
football.
It's
But
fine. Yeah.
The one thing I'll say on the spring game is like I don't really get the coaches that are like, oh, we're not actually going to play a spring game this year, just as defense from the transfer portal. It's like the spring game is not the spring game is not useful tape. It's not a real game.
No.
It's
Yeah.
not at real game speed. The real tape is from last season. If they look good last season, they're probably getting looks in the transfer portal. This is just like
Yep.
just play the game. It's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
It's a limited playbook. It's a physicality thing. Yeah. It's not going to be the biggest thing. I mean, as you, Jake, to your point, I think seeing some of those defensive names and seeing how of what we can even draw from this game, I think that's still going to be it, enlightening just to see where they're at and who's playing what position and how they feel in those positions and things like that. I know the linebackers going to have some turnover this year. Obviously, the defensive line's going to have some turnover. So seeing where that's at, it'll be cool. Hopefully we got a lot of new wide receiver stuff going on. I think it'll be cool to see Isaiah Canyon run some routes. Eric Rivers will be out there. We'll see how Rutherford is. Maybe we see Grady Abson throw a few balls. The new incoming freshman. We'll see. So I think it'll be fun nonetheless. I sadly will not be there, but we should have some coverage on the website nonetheless after the game. Okay, woo, we went a while. It's a little loose by our standards, I'd say, but it's all right. We got it done. I'm not going to call this a perfect episode like I called last week. We're honest enough to know this was not perfect, but we're getting there. We're getting there on average. So,
yeah.
I think that's it. Jake, you can take us home.
Yeah, as always, thanks for listening. You can find us at FromTheRumbleSeat.com. We put a bunch of written words up there too. You can email us with your thoughts, comments, questions, suggestions at FromTheRumbleSeat@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us there, I guess. But you can find all of us on Blue Sky as well. FTRS blog dot bsky.social. I don't know. Blue Sky's weird, but
Something like
we're
that.
over there. Jake Grant 98, Jack Nicholas. Akshay, I traditionally don't read his posts, but he's got more followers than I think all of us put together by a factor of a bunch. You can find Section 103 on Instagram at Section 103 and at section103.com. Remember 10% off code FTRS. And you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. As always, please tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best place for people to find out about us, and you can find us wherever fine podcasts are distributed. Good night, good luck, and see you next week. Go Jackets.